Hi there. Hey, welcome back to the Marketing for Business podcast. Got a ripper for you today. If you've ever thought of starting a podcast or a YouTube channel, this is for you. Look, one thing I've learned from running a podcast, nearly done 100 episodes, over 4 years. The podcast is a real advantage, especially when you start to do video for building trust at scale. So this is a presentation I did as a keynote at the Marketing Association. I've actually made it a little bit better. I'm refining it, and I want to teach everyone here because I think everyone has got a podcast in them, and I'm going to give you some reasons why you should start a podcast, some of the things that you can do, some of the things you can learn from my mistakes, etc. So this is going to be all cool. I've got some budget slides here. Going to go through them, but firstly, I've got some goals. When I do a presentation, I really always have 3 goals. Number one is I'm going to give you some confidence and some clarity to show you that podcasting really, really works for a business. I'm going to show you that if done right, you can get a velocity inside your business that builds content at scale. And also, I think it allows you to create the perfect sales campaign because it allows you to meet people where they are. Today it's all about trust. Today it's all about attention. And podcast gives you the ability to do that. It allows you to connect with people either in their car, while they're working out, while they're going for a walk, etc. And allows them to know, like, and trust you in a way that's very, very personal. And I know from experience, from getting feedback, people listen to our podcast, when they're out doing a walk or they're at the gym or they're in their car, and we get feedback all the time, and it allows them to learn at their own pace about us. And it then creates what we call that warm, cool environment where people are calling us, wanting to know more about how we can help them. So I'm also going to give you some confidence to be curious. So I'm curious about how to build know, like, and trust faster. If you've ever seen any of my presentations or listened to the podcast, I'm a big one about know, like, and trust. Like, know is to build character. One of the characters everyone should build is to be helpful and useful. Like is to build chemistry. How do you create chemistry so people like you and want to know more about you? And then how to build or demonstrate credibility. Demonstrating credibility is probably one of the most important things you can think about as a business as we move into the AI world where video content especially will get disrupted by AI. And you'll see this more and more coming out on social feeds. This is where the likes of YouTube and podcasting will really start to take over as people crave that face-to-face connection with people. And look, this is the way to do it, to build that know, like, and trust. And I want to make you curious to want to do that even more. Then I'm giving you some confidence to take some courage to to know that this is for you. I think by the end of this presentation, you'll know if this is for you, and if it is, hey, I want you to reach out to me and see how we can help. But if it's not, at least I'm going to give you some insights into what's really going on from a marketing perspective when it comes to podcasting, when it comes to YouTube. So I'm gonna let you know that you can own this. You can own this, and if you need a little bit of help owning it, you let us know. But you can definitely do this. I was in a bit of a backstory. I was in Miami in March 2022, and I heard this thing. All these guys and girls from all around the world, they had some of the biggest agencies in the world, digital marketing agencies, and they were all talking about this thing called podcasting. And I was like, podcasting what? What's that? And I started because I'm curious, because I want to learn, because I want to be soaking up that environment in the room. I started asking questions, and as a good old Kiwi boy, and the only Kiwi in the room, people started letting me in, showing me what they were doing with podcasting, and they were sharing how it was really helping them grow their business. And I was excited by that. So I decided, look, I'm going to start my own podcast. And I started a podcast called the Marketing for Business Podcast. And look, here's the thing. I learned this in, I think it was March 22. I had my first episode in March 2022. Was with my good friend and one of the clients that we look after, Mr. Kevin Eder from Trade Staff. It was a great episode, and I'm so glad he's coming back on. We're doing our 200th episode with Kevin. He was the first, and the good part about it, he's coming back. We're going to do the 200th episode. Here's the thing. I recorded that on my iPhone. I didn't have all the bells and whistles. I didn't have the equipment. I didn't really I didn't know if I needed it. I definitely wasn't doing video like I am here today. I just put down my on my iPhone and push record, and me and him chatted for about an hour about his business, about his philosophies. I learned so much just from sitting down and talking with Kevin, and I know a lot of people learn a lot from that episode as well. Now, one of the key things that always stood out to me, Kevin started talking about, if you want to be replaced or if you want to be promoted, then you have to be replaced. And it's a really great insight into business. And this is one of the coolest things from interviewing now. So many people, so many business owners, the insights I gained from just being in the room with those people has been awesome. So, this is one of the, the byproducts of running a podcast and interviewing people. You learn as well. But recorded on my iPhone, didn't let it stop me. And I committed to one per week. Then I started interviewing other clients. Kane Lawson, man, Kane's a great entrepreneur, and even to this day, that episode gets downloads. The same with Kevin, and same with Mike James from Novus. They both taught me so much. Mike taught me a really, really good lesson in that episode. And at the time, the oil prices were high because of the not Iran, the Russia and Ukraine war. Oil prices were quite high. And he said, Scotty, you don't market for the recession, you market for the rebound. Once again, a great gold takeaway that he'd known, being in business over 43 years and like owning and running Novus. Show us your crack. And so it's great insights, but I committed to one a week. And that's what I would love for you. If you're going to commit to doing a podcast, do one a week. And film it. And I'll teach you some more stuff about that later on. Because right now we're sitting on 192 episodes. By the time this one comes out, I think this will be close to 198, 199 episodes. And look, I've been fortunate enough to speak, interview, and share the insights of like literally hundreds of business owners and entrepreneurs now in New Zealand. And I feel really blessed to be able to have done that, and look, the cool part about it, people would say, Scott, why podcasting? Why? And if I was really smart, and I wish I could say this, that I had a crystal ball. And 4 years ago, I knew everything else that was going to play out. I knew ChatGPT was going to come along. I knew AI was going to come along. I knew Gemini was going to take over with Google and their distribution strategies. I knew that Claude would make stuff so easy for businesses. But the reality is I didn't. Maybe I knew that ads were going to get skipped, blocked, and ignored, and skyrocketing costs. Mind you, I've been preaching that for years to business owners, that costs would come up as the media starts to move. The big mainstream media are now starting to come more and more into the likes of social media, etc. There's still a little window, but now it's starting to. They know where the eyeballs are. They're moving away from traditional like radio, TV, billboard, etc., and they're going into social. Maybe I knew that we were going to have a 3-second attention span. Watch anyone today. They have a 3-second attention span when it comes to their phone. And maybe I knew that. Maybe I knew AI was coming, and that having a vault of content like you can see in here would be a huge advantage. Maybe I knew having all this whole information of 190 odd videos or 190 odd pieces of content, that AI would now start to learn off that and position us in such a good way. But the reality is, the truth is, I didn't know any of that. Well, I knew some of it, but not all of it, especially around the way it's positioned us with AI now. But here's the truth. I just love talking to business owners. I love talking to my entrepreneurs. I love asking them questions. I love getting inside their heads and figuring out what they've figured out. And that was the truth, and it allowed me to live my core values. It allowed me to be bold and put on workshops and seminars to run the podcast live in front of a live audience. It allowed me to live my other core value of being able to give value in advance before anyone ever gave me any money. A great example was this podcast with Cadbury's, and talking about how Cadbury's, and how if you looked at the big picture and what they were really trying to do in their messaging, Rose's chocolate. Why did you give Rose's chocolate? What was the message behind that? Well, Rose's chocolate was a chocolate when you wanted to say thank you to someone. And then favorites, they position favorites as the chocolate to bring when someone has told you not to bring anything. When you get invited to a place and they said, oh, don't bring anything, or you bought favorites. And that was the positioning, the market positioning behind those two brands. And I talked about that in the podcast. And that's the cool thing about this platform. It's allowed me to share my expertise. And I want that for you as well. You have insights inside your head that are very, very powerful. And I always say, a small hinge swings a big door. your ability to share that live on a podcast or pre-recorded on a podcast allows you to position yourself as an expert in the marketplace. And guess what? You're going to need that. You're going to need that in the world of AI slop. People buy from people they know, like, and trust, and this is a great way to do it. It also allowed me to live one of my core values. My other core value is celebrate your victories. It allows me to put people up on a pedestal and celebrate who they are, what they have to offer, and why people should listen to them. And also allowed me to win. And the podcast, I'm really, really grateful for the team that work behind the podcast, Bronte, etc., because the work that they do helped us become on a number of times the number one marketing podcast in New Zealand, and I'm really, really proud of that. And I'm proud of our ability to stay consistent and do that. The thing is, it also allows me to live the core value of digital influence and the purpose of digital influence, which is to educate, to influence, and inspire growth together. That is our core purpose here at what we do. It's why we do workshops. It's why we do lunch and learns. It's why we educate our clients and people that are not even our clients yet. We give value in advance, and the podcast is allowed to live out this purpose. So it's very, very grateful for that. Hey, so why should you be like Sam and Damien, and why should you start a podcast? Well, it allows you to create long form content that builds trust. And they've got some great examples on here. Nick Burns here was a guest on the podcast. Interviewed Nick. He's got a great story. He helps tech companies. He built up a tech company and actually sold it. Now he helps tech companies go into the market and go into Australia, etc. Now, the cool thing about it, I caught up with Nick, and Nick said to me, you know what, that podcast was great. You know what I do with it? When someone wants to work with me, I send them the link of me being on the podcast, and that does all the selling for me. And I just thought, how cool is that? Because all of a sudden, if someone's wanting to work with Nick, he doesn't have to sell them. He just says, hey, go and listen to this podcast. And if it sounds like, if I sound like someone you'd like to work with after listening, let's have another conversation. For 45 minutes, Nick and myself are going backwards and forwards on what he did, how he did it, and positioning him as an expert in a really friendly conversation. He gets business because of that. Being a guest on a podcast is a way you can win today. But also Hayden Knight here is one of our clients from Mag and Turbo, Christchurch. We did a great podcast with Hayden up in his loft with his cars, etc., live on site. And it was such a good podcast. And the cool thing about it, I know from his experience, he was getting people coming in and saying, hey, I heard you on the podcast. And it really made him realize that other people are out there are listening, and they're tuning in, and they want to know who you are, where you are, what you have to offer. And podcast is such a great way for that. And when you start to think about a podcast, who has the most to gain from the insights you have to share? And start to think about that. Who has the most to gain from you sitting in front of a camera or just audio? It's your customers, your potential customers have the most to gain. My question is, do they know you exist? Do they really know you exist? They probably don't. And this is a great way. Have consistency of message, have frequency of reach to become relevant over time. A podcast allows you to do that. Here's another really cool thing about a podcast and why a podcast is so important. A podcast allows you to create short form video content effortlessly. I know the real struggle for a lot of business owners trying to create short form content. They struggle with it, and I'll tell you what, it's not easy. It's not easy to sit in front of a camera and have someone coach you through creating short form content. Here's the coolest thing. When you're doing a long form video content, you get to create short form content from it. You can cut it up. You can have AI cut it up, and all of a sudden you've got content that you can use and to market your business. So you've got long form and short form working for you as a business, and it's definitely a lot easier to create. The other one is your guest and your network and the opportunities. So look, don't underestimate the power of having a guest on your podcast, and the networks, that opportunities it creates. This is Paul Wright, who was one of the founders of Harcourts. Having him on the podcast has opened up a number of doors for us as a business. We're now working with the Inspire Foundation as a charity partner, and that's unlocking a number of doors. Also, Amy here from Human Impact, she was on the podcast. We started talking about opportunities. In a couple of weeks, we're filming a product around emerging leaders and actually how to help leaders, younger leaders inside your company grow. There are so many opportunities when you start to open up a podcast. One of the things I really do love about it, and I've kind of touched on it here, one recording, multiple assets. This is so, so important. Short form clips from your content, long form video that people can binge on, and binges are buyers, as Taki Moore would say. You can create a long form post from it, a blog post. You can put it in your email newsletter. You can create sales collateral from it, and you can create social media posts. All of the above is what we do with the podcast. Hey, it's 2026. You're listening to this podcast and you've probably heard of AI. So here's what I want you to do. We've created a free playbook that'll actually help you with AI and help your business get recommended. So all you need to do is go to the show notes or the link that's in this video, and I'll send you this playbook for free. You also get the distribution effect with a podcast. Now, here's the cool thing. When we have guests on, we create a pack for them, and I'll share in just a minute how we do that. But all of a sudden, they start sharing your podcast, your content with them in front of their audiences. Now, we get a lot of shares on LinkedIn. We get a lot of shares on Messenger. We get a lot of shares on Instagram and Facebook, etc., because people want to share the content that they've been on the podcast. So you get the distribution effect, which is such a byproduct of what you're doing when you have a podcast. This is a real big one. Delivered versus received value. You know, for me to shoot a podcast here, this one's probably going to be 30 minutes, 35 minutes. It doesn't take me much to deliver this value to you, but the value received is completely different. And I know from this text here, you know, a young gentleman was listening to my podcast about the top 10 books that I recommend. He sent me this text, you know, hi Scott, just listen to your podcast, top 10 books. I got heaps of value. Thanks so much. The value that people receive versus the input. You know, you're doing this one to many, not one to one. You're actually reaching one person in your ears, but there's lots of ears listening, you know, and this is the value of delivered versus received value. And look, 4 more reasons why you should start a podcast. It really is about authority positioning. And I think, you know, when you interview other experts, you become the expert. Your name gets associated with the topic. It allows you to grow and have business development. You know, every guest is a warm relationship, you know, invitations rather than cold calls, as I said before. It's a real door opener. You know I can get in front of a lot more people because I have a podcast now with 190 episodes. It's a lot easier for me to get on and ask them to come on the podcast versus sending them a cold email wanting to do a sales call with them. The pipeline of prospects starts to accelerate. Discovery calls, etc. We're doing more of those. People check us out. The more content we create, it really starts to compound, you know, and your library grows forever. And this is what I like about it. You know, episode 4 I've got in here still generates, you know, leads and views and content and questions years and years later. And I think that is the power of it too. You know, where we are getting a snowball effect when it comes to our podcast. One thing I love to talk about is the evolution of our podcast and how it's evolved. You know, as I said, it started as an audio podcast. It started with an iPhone, and we progressed to getting some microphones. And look, if I could go back again, I would do that better from an audio perspective. But then we transitioned to video, and the video aspect of it really started to take off. And that's when we really started to see the numbers starting to grow, the content starting to grow, and the lead volume for the business. Well, you know, also, you know, the Marketing for Business podcast, our evolution is around live events, you know, taking it into a live environment, which is a little bit scary, but we can record, we can get feedback, and we can have guests, and we can once again position, give value in advance to our audience. You know, bringing people in for a lunch and learn where we record the Marketing for Business podcast is a great evolution, and we'll look to do more and more of that as we progress. Look, I think it's important to share the work that no one sees, because it looks pretty easy from a top line level, you know, record a video, put it out on YouTube. But there's a lot of things going on, and guest sourcing is a big one. Whether you've got international guests, local guests, you know, there is a wee bit of work here. One of the best things I definitely use for prep. I do quite a bit of prep on my audience, and I put it out to my network as far as who should come on the podcast. I get a lot of people wanting to be on the podcast. There's not a day goes by that we don't get emails of people wanting to go on the podcast. I'm very selective. You know, I will go and visit people's LinkedIn pages. I'll see how active they are, see the message that they've got. And when I'm doing my prep, I'll definitely go into LinkedIn and get a lot of information. Now I'm lucky because I have the ability to be curious. I don't script questions, but if I didn't have that ability, I would definitely script questions. I will give those questions to the people coming on the podcast. The reality is I don't. I just use my natural ability to be curious. But I definitely do a lot of prep. I probably do between half an hour to 2 hours prep on the person, so I know, and I have notes written out on my Remarkable tablet that really, really helps me. Recording, look, recording in the studio here or on site, we basically do it as a format as an interview, or if you like, you can do what I'm doing now and just do face to face to camera, and do it singly. And both of these work. I would say having a guest on allows you to get more velocity because they share it to their networks, etc. But recording by yourself allows you to position yourself and share your insights that you have, just like I'm doing now. I've done something and now I'm sharing it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Look, from an editing perspective, editing and production, we use a couple of bits of software. I'll put these in the show notes. There's so many of these types of platforms now that you can use. You don't have to get married to one. This is just the one we use as Alatel or Alatu. It's a real simple piece of software, but that's what we use. For hosting and distribution, we definitely use all the good ones: Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube, etc. Look, they are the platforms. Be across them, be on them, and you'll get that distribution effect. Definitely YouTube's definitely something that we've leaned into and are going to lean into more as we grow the Marketing for Business channel and grow our personal brand channels as well on YouTube using video. It definitely is a great way to do this. We're starting to get more subscribers to our YouTube channel, and being able to reach a lot more people via YouTube. YouTube will definitely help in the future with AI, etc. So really working in on that as well to help the distribution effect and get some longer term evergreen wins with AI. Another thing I'd say is you got to commit to the calendar. For me, I made that commitment to do one a week. The reality is I will film 3 podcasts this week, and then next week I'll do one. The following week I won't do any, and then I'm on holiday for 3 weeks. So I've batch recorded podcasts that'll then go out over a period of time while I'm away, but I commit to one a week. They go out every Wednesday morning American time, which is Thursday New Zealand time. And look, I'm proud to say we haven't missed in 4 years, and we won't miss in 4 years. I even put one out Christmas Day as a little gift and as a little present. Now, look, I know those episodes aren't going to get too many people listening, but the commitment is more about it than just not doing it. You want to be consistent. You want to build that muscle, commit to the calendar, and make it happen. Another thing we do with our podcast guests is we follow up. We give them a pack. We actually give them some video content. So to make it real easy for them, we give them a pack. They get short form videos, they get long form videos, they get the audio, etc. And it really, really allows them to distribute what we're doing and what we've done for them really, really simply and really easily. Like, we have the assets anyway, so why not share them? So we wrap them up, and Bronte and the team put them up in a Google Doc. And then we email them, and people are really, really grateful that we've gone to that length to actually help them promote themselves. I get asked all the time, what gear to use. Well, this is being recorded on a Sony ZV-E10 camera. Look, we are looking at upgrading our cameras and potentially going into a proper studio. This is a Rode PSA1 and a boom arm. We're using DJI Mic 2s. We have a Rodecaster Duo there. We have video software, editing software, publishing. We have hosting. I host through Captivate as well. Look, but here's the thing. When I started, I had an iPhone. Don't let the gear hold you back. Just get out there and execute. One thing I would say though is invest in good audio. Go to Rubber Monkey and invest in good audio. Look, there's a quit stat I want to share. Pod fade and is a real thing apparently. Typically it hits around episode 10. 30% of all podcasts have fewer than 10 episodes. That's really sad. I've actually heard the numbers are higher. I'm not a massive one for stats, to be fair. I just like do what you can do and do it well. Don't listen too much to the statistics. But hey, most people will quit on this, and that's the beautiful thing. There's so much opportunity. Because here's the thing: don't get married to the results. Get married, and don't get married to the outcome short term. Get married to the outcome long term. If you give value in advance to people, you'll never actually have to worry about money. And I say that from my heart, because I know in 2004, when I heard that from Brett McFall, he said, "Scott, just give value in advance." I didn't really know what he meant, because I was from the corporate world. Corporates hold on to stuff. They don't share stuff. They said, if you're going to run a business, you're going to own your own business, which is what I was looking to do. You need to give value in advance. You need to help people first, and you'll never have to worry about money. Well, I'm living proof now, that is so true. So, don't get too attached to the outcome. One thing is just commit, because here's my advice: commit to 50 episodes. You want to commit to 50 episodes. And I know now that's a lot, right? But that's one episode a week. One episode a week for 1 year. If you can do that, you will have a podcast. And if you don't get too attached to the numbers, etc. Because here's the thing I know: it starts to snowball. It starts to snowball. The more you do it, the more people get to know you, like you, and trust you, and they share your content. They share your podcast, and all of a sudden you pick other listeners up. This is a great way to win. One thing I would say is pick a narrow niche. Like marketing's quite broad, but it's a topic that we have. So maybe pick a niche. Sam and Damien from Tobacco, they talk about helping businesses sell their business. What a great niche that is. If you're in the business to sell your business, you want to be going and listening to that podcast. And look, you want to make your guests famous. For me, it's really, really important you make your guests famous. So we will spend marketing money to make our guests famous. We might pin their business location and then advertise all around it, so people see them on the podcast. So you want to make your guests famous. As I said before, invest in audio. There's some great local audio stores you can go to, whether you're in Christchurch, Wellington, Auckland. If you want to buy it online, you go to Rubber Monkey. They have podcast setups now where you can just order the whole thing. If this was around when I started, I would have probably just done this, but it wasn't. So we just recorded on the old iPhone, but I don't regret it. But one thing I would say, if I had my time again, I would have invested in audio a lot quicker to help me get a better sound. And look, publish when it even feels pointless. Look, we all know, especially as a business owner, you're busy and you think, oh, is this really, really worth it? One thing I'll say to you is you never know, when things start to turn for you. And so publish when it even feels pointless, and get involved, be curious, and look, celebrate other people's victories. Try not to make it about yourself, and you'll go really, really good, because here's the thing: the upside of this is huge. And I've had some great points. Another thing I will say to you, Brad Sugar's taught me this. He's the action coach. He's an absolute legend. I remember going and seeing him in Christchurch, and he said, "Scott, what anyone else ever thinks of me is none of my business. What anyone ever thinks of me is none of my business." So what other people, because some people will tell me, "Oh, Scott, I couldn't come on video. I couldn't do this. I couldn't do that. What if this? What if that?" Well, the fact is, most people aren't thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves. So if you can just take action, if you can just get your mindset into the fact, I'm going to give value in advance, I'm going to share what I know, and the world will be a better place because of it, you will succeed. So we're going 30 minutes. And look, I really appreciate you listening to this, because I know if you're that type of person, you're going to do this podcast thing. You're going to step into out of your comfort zone, and you're going to give this a go. So I've got some final thoughts. And this is really, really big when you start to think of the context of where AI is going to take us. A podcast is not a marketing channel. It is a trust compounding machine. I know this for a fact because I've been doing this 4 years now. Now I'm getting invited to go and speak at events. Now I'm getting invited to give my opinion on things, right? I'm actually building a book created from the back of this podcast. It starts to compound. People start to see you, they start to like you, and they start to trust you because you've shown up, for 4 years in a row. All I'm wanting you to do is show up for 50 episodes, and I can guarantee your business will not be the same. This is the game changer. This is the unlock in a world of AI slop that's going to be coming. Because here's the thing: every episode is a deposit. Steve Covey said it best. This is about reciprocity. This is about connecting with people and depositing into their emotional bank account, so they see you, like you, and trust you because you're giving them value in advance. Their emotional bank account starts to fill up and it deposits. And the cool thing about it, you can't shortcut this with AI. You know, you can't shortcut this 30-minute piece of content. You earn it an hour at a time, a guest at a time, and a week at a time. The cool thing about this, when you bring on other people, they start to share it with their networks. You know, they ask, is it real? You can't shortcut this. This is the power of this podcast, and the way to do it. So I really, really, if you've seen enough now, this is the truth. It's hard work, but it's worth it. And here's the thing, because it's hard work, most people won't do it, which is why it works. You know, we are not in an overcrowded market here with podcasting and YouTube channels because most people won't do this. This is an unlock to grow your business by using the knowledge and insights you have inside your head to help other people. So here's the thing, connect with me on LinkedIn. You've got a question, message me on LinkedIn and let's understand how we could help you, create a podcast, because that's what we're doing now. We've got a great podcast that we've just signed, and we're helping people now create their own podcast. So hook me up on LinkedIn. If you've liked this episode and you want to know more, just message me. You know where I am. I hang out on LinkedIn. That's my favorite. And look, we can have a conversation on how this could work for you. But I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this episode. You look, nearly 200 episodes, and we're not going to stop. We're going to keep going because I know the value that we're adding to the marketplace. So look, if you can do me a favor, share this episode, tag me in on LinkedIn, tag me in on Instagram, and let me know that you listened to it. And what is one thing that you learned that you're going to use inside your business? But anyway, I really appreciate this. The podcast has given me a lot. It's given me a platform to share my knowledge inside my head. It's given me the opportunity to write a book that I never thought I'd get to write. So I'm internally grateful for that. So here's the thing, have fun. Take action, and as always, celebrate your victories.